China's foreign ministry delivered a blistering rebuke to the United States on Monday, issuing a strong warning to Washington to cease sending wrong signals to Taiwan, condemning U.S. actions in the South China Sea as destabilizing and explicitly rejecting American criticism regarding its relations with Venezuela and Russia. This comprehensive and assertive statement signals Beijing's growing impatience with what it perceives as consistent U.S. interference in its internal affairs and a concerted effort to undermine its geopolitical influence. The ministry also declined to confirm widespread reports that President Xi Jinping had extended an invitation to Donald Trump for a state visit to China, dismissed U.S. pressure concerning the popular social media platform TikTok as a form of coercion, and staunchly defended its robust trade relations with Moscow amidst the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. Furthermore, Chinese officials accused the United States of distorting history in its interpretation of Taiwan's post-World War II status and unequivocally reiterate Beijing's long-standing vow that reunification with a self-governing island remains inevitable. This multifaceted condemnation from Beijing underscores the deepening fissures in U.S. China relations, highlighting a fundamental clash of geopolitical interests, ideological differences, and divergent interpretations of international norms and historical events. The firm tone suggests that China is increasingly unwilling to yield to U.S. diplomatic pressure, preferring to project an image of unyielding resolve on issues it deems critical to its sovereignty and national security. The issue of Taiwan remains arguably the most sensitive and potentially volatile flashpoint in U.S.-China relations. Beijing views Taiwan as an integral part of its territory, a breakaway province that must eventually be reunified with the mainland by force if necessary. The United States, while acknowledging the One China policy, also maintains robust unofficial relations with Taiwan and is its primary arms supplier. Guided by the Taiwan Relation Act, China's foreign ministry's warning to stop sending wrong signals directly target various U.S. actions, including high-level diplomatic visits, arms sales, and statements of support for Taiwan's democratic governments, all of which Beijing interprets as undermining its sovereignty claims and encouraging Taiwanese independence movement. These wrong signals, from China's perspective, include gestures that appear to elevate Taiwan's international status or suggest a stronger U.S. commitment to its defense than what the One China policy ostensibly allows. Beijing's consistent and increasingly sharp rhetoric on Taiwan reflects its unwavering determination to prevent any moves toward formal independence and to push back against what it sees as U.S. attempts to leverage Taiwan as a strategic pawn in broader geopolitical competition. The implications of any miscalculation or direct confrontation over Taiwan are enormous, potentially triggering a major military conflict with global repercussions, thus making the diplomatic exchange around this issue intensely scrutinized by the international community. Moving to the South China Sea, China's foreign ministry condemned U.S. action as destabilizing the region. Beijing asserts historical claims over vast swaths of the South China Sea, including numerous islands and reefs, many of which are also claimed by other littoral states such as the Philippines, Vietnam, Malaysia, and Brunei. China has aggressively fortified several of these features, building military installations, runways, and radar systems, actions which the U.S. and its allies view as illegal and a violation of international law, particularly the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea. The United States conduct freedom of navigation operations, FONOPs, in the South China Sea, sending naval vessels and aircraft through waters claimed by China, explicitly to challenge what it considers excessive maritime claims and to uphold the principle of free passage in international waters. China views these FONOPs as provocative military maneuvers designed to assert U.S. dominance, challenge its territorial integrity, and intimidate its neighbors. The accusation of destabilizing actions highlights China's narrative that U.S. military presence and activities, rather than its own extensive claim and island buildings, are the primary source of tension in the strategically vital waterway. This contention underscores a fundamental divergence in how both powers perceive maritime security, international law, and regional stability in one of the world's most critical shipping lanes. The escalating rhetoric and increased military presence by both sides raise concerns about potential accidental clashes that could quickly spiral into a larger conflict. Furthermore, China flatly rejects American criticism regarding its diplomatic and economic ties with Venezuela and Russia. Concerning Venezuela, the U.S. has imposed extensive sanctions on the Maduro regime, viewing it as authoritarian and undemocratic, and has actively supported opposition figures. China, however, maintains strong economic and political ties with Venezuela, driven by energy interests and a shared anti-U.S. sentiment. Beijing views U.S. pressure on Venezuela as unwarranted interference in another sovereign nation's affairs and a manifestation of Washington's hegemonic tendencies in Latin America. China's support for Venezuela is part of its broader strategy to expand its influence globally and challenge the unipolar international order, often by aligning with countries that are also at odds with the United States. This divergence in approach reflects a clash of principle. The U.S. emphasizing human rights and democratic governance versus China prioritizing state sovereignty and non-interference, even in the face of authoritarianism. Beijing's defense of its relationship with Venezuela signals its commitment to its geopolitical partners and its rejection of U.S. attempt to isolate governments that do not align with Washington's foreign policy objectives. Regarding Russia, China Foreign Ministry unequivocally defends its trade relation with Moscow amidst the ongoing war in Ukraine. Since the full-scale invasion, Western nations, led by the U.S., have imposed unprecedented sanctions on Russia, aiming to cripple its economy and impede its war effort. China, however, has significantly increased its trade with Russia, providing a crucial economic lifeline to Moscow and mitigating the impact of Western sanctions. This includes purchase of Russian energy, sales of Chinese manufactured goods, and technological cooperation. The U.S. and its allies have repeatedly urged China to distance itself from Russia and to comply with the sanction regime, even threatening secondary sanctions against Chinese entities. Beijing views these demands as attempts to dictate its foreign policy and to coerce it into abandoning a strategic partner. China's defense of its trade with Russia is rooted in its principle of non-interference in internal affairs, its strategic alignment with Moscow against perceived Western hegemony, and its economic interest in accessing Russian resources. It also reflects a shared desire to counter a U.S.-led international order. Beijing's refusal to condemn the invasion or join the sanctions coalition has further strained its relation with the West, yet it remains steadfast in its partnership with Russia, seeing it as crucial for balancing Western power and advancing a multipolar world order. In addition to these direct rebukes, the Foreign Ministry refusal to confirm reports of President Xi Jinping inviting Donald Trump to visit China adds another layer to the complex U.S. China dynamic. Such an invitation, if extended, would be a highly significant diplomatic gesture, especially given Trump's previous presidency, which saw a marked increase in trade tensions and rhetorical confrontation with China. The ministry's non-committal stance could be interpreted in several ways. It might be an attempt to manage expectation, avoid confirming sensitive diplomatic discussions, or simply to deny a report that is not yet finalized or strategically opportune to announce. However, the timing of such a potential visit, particularly with Trump now in office, would undoubtedly carry immense geopolitical weight, signaling a potential shift in the U.S. approach to China or a Chinese attempt to find common ground with a new administration. The public dismissal, or at least non-confirmation of such a high-profile invitation, also demonstrates China's control over its diplomatic narrative and its unwillingness to be drawn into speculation fueled by external reports. It suggests that Beijing prefers to reveal its diplomatic cards only when it deems strategically advantageous, thereby maintaining an element of calculated ambiguity in its high-stakes interactions with Washington. The ministry's dismissal of U.S. pressure over TikTok as coercion highlight another significant area of friction: technology and data security. The U.S. government, citing national security concerns, has attempted to ban TikTok, owned by the Chinese company ByteDance, or force its divestiture from its Chinese parent. The U.S. argument centers on fears that the Chinese government could access user data or influence the platform's content, posing a risk to American national security and privacy. China vehemently rejects these allegations, portraying the U.S. action as protectionist measures designed to curb the success of Chinese technology companies and as an unfair attack on a global application. Beijing views the U.S. attempt to control or ban TikTok as an example of economic coercion and a manifestation of Washington's broader strategy to contain China's technological rise. This issue has become emblematic of the broader tech war between the two powers, where competition over semiconductors, artificial intelligence, and telecommunications infrastructure is intense. China's strong reaction indicates its resolve to protect its flagship technology companies from foreign interference, viewing their global success as a crucial component of its national power and influence. The use of the term coercion implies that China sees these pressure as illegitimate and a violation of fair market principles, further deepening the rift in their technological and economic relationship. Finally, Chinese officials profoundly accuse the U.S. of distorting history on Taiwan's status after World War II and reiterate Beijing's unwavering commitment to the inevitable reunification with the island. This accusation touched upon the historical narrative surrounding Taiwan, particularly how its status was determined in the aftermath of Japan's defeat in 1945. Beijing adhered to the interpretation that Taiwan was legally restored to China, which it considers the People's Republic of China, and that its current separate governance is a result of the Chinese Civil War and subsequent foreign interference. The U.S. interpretation often emphasized the unresolved status of Taiwan's sovereignty and the importance of self-determination for the Taiwanese people. By accusing the U.S. of distorting history, China seeks to delegitimize any argument that challenges its claim to Taiwan and to reinforce its historical and legal basis for reunification. The reiteration of reunification as inevitable is a powerful and frequently used rhetorical device by Beijing, signaling its long-term strategic goal and its ultimate resolve on the matter. This declaration serves as a direct message to both Taiwan and the international community that China will not waver from its objective, regardless of external pressure or internal dissent. The use of such strong and definitive language underscores the centrality of Taiwan to China's national identity and its future geopolitical ambition, setting the stage for continued tension and potential flashpoint in the region. That's all for me for today. If you like the video presentation and you would like to follow for more, hit that subscribe and like button now, and we will continue to build the show for you. Thank you to all of you guys who have subscribed. It means a lot to me. Thank you so much, and we'll see you soon. Bye for now.